Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is Neil with Portal to Ascension. Thank you all so much for being here for today's event. Extremely excited. I'm just jumping on for a quick minute here in the beginning. I'm going to hand it over to my really good friend, Brendon from Paradigm Shift Central, that you've probably seen quite a few times on Portal to Ascension. A man really dear to my heart, one of the most beautiful people I know, and I'm so grateful to have him as a friend. And we are co-creating. Well, actually, try creating because there's three of us. I think co means two. So we're creating with the three of us here for this Laws of Creation series, in which there's going to be 3 episodes. So thank you all for joining in and being a part of this. It's really going to be a deep dive. Hopefully, Brandon can talk about kind of how this whole process came along, because I love telling the story about just the connection and why this series is actually occurring today. But all I want to say from everybody here is hello and welcome, and please do say hi in the chat room. Let's start some engagement here, and let us know where you're from, on or off planet, and just make yourself known. Let's create the energy and the buzz for what we're going to experience today. And everybody on YouTube as well, hello to all of you guys. Whoever is here in the Zoom room and on YouTube, of course, you have unlimited replay access. So if you signed up for this event, you're going to get an email just a couple days after this event with the replay. So you can watch it back as many times as possible. And then, of course, do come back and join us for the other 2 episodes. So I'm just going to go ahead and give it right over to you, Brendon. Welcome, brother. Thank you so much for, even bringing up this idea with Iain here. And now, it's pretty awesome. Now we're here at the starting of this series that we've been taking so much time to curate together.
Awesome, Neil. Thank you so much. And yeah, happy to be able to be here. Iain, thank you for being here as well. And again, for everybody who's tuned in on Zoom and on YouTube, this is really exciting. And again, I'm here to be able to not only help kind of just like hype things up, but to be able to help hold space as we create this container to really bring in some powerful wisdom. And so long story short, Iain and I, we've been friends for he's been following my content for a while, but we've been close friends for a few months now. And this man, just to take a moment, wow, there are some people who I'm fortunate to know in my life who I'm really able to draw a lot of inspiration from. And Iain, in the short time I've known him, I've taken a lot of inspiration just in terms of not only his desire to want to be able to help bring wisdom out into the world, but also his accomplishments as both an individual, as a father, as a businessman, and as someone who's also, again, some of you haven't seen me in a while. I've been busy as a new dad, and I actually have my new dad mug, which I'm coincidentally using as well here today. But to be able to learn alongside from Iain, both as a father and as a spiritual seeker, has been a real beautiful honor. And there's some other stuff which we'll have to give you guys all the updates on a little bit later. There's some collaboration that Iain and I have been planning, more ways to serve the community through the Paradigm Shift Central project, and also involving Portal to Ascension with that. But for Iain to be here today, I'm going to pass it to him in a second. And within his presentation, he's going to tell you a little bit more about who he is and the hats he wears. But within this discussion, a few months back, Iain, we had a meeting. We just kind of had a session. He's like, Brendon, I have a lot of wisdom to share. I'd love to be able to work with you to be help bring it into the world. And I'm like, dude, let's do some events. Let's do some live broadcasts. That's my specialty. That's my jam. That's where I really love being able to bring people together. And then with that, I'm like, let's reach out to Neil. Let's talk to him. And then I set up a meeting with the 3 of us. And then lo and behold, the ideas began to flesh out. Even at first, we weren't fully sure what we were going to do. And we kind of started leaning into the laws of creation, the laws of the universe, going into Hermetic philosophy. But really, here we want to be able to do it in such a way that it's practical. There's a utility to it. By you watching this, not only will you be entertained, you'll take a new perspective from it that you'll be able to implement into your reality from someone such as Iain, he's speaking from a place of wisdom as well. And then to be able to really apply it to your own life, to be able to transform it, again, to be able to understand how the universe works so that you can kind of deconstruct it and then reconstruct your own version of a preferred reality. And so there's a lot to be able to learn from. Again, this is just episode 1. We've got 2 more after this, and who knows, from there, we'll see what happens. But coming up with this one, this is about the laws of oneness and vibration. And again, with that following, we're going to have episode 2 on June 30th, the universal feedback loop, which is about laws of action, correspondence, cause, and effect. And then we're going to be moving into episode 3 by July 28th. And that one is from the core to the now, laws of compensation and attraction. So if you haven't already yet, go ahead and read some of the information just on the event page, and you'll get more of the details. But you're going to learn alongside. I'm here to learn alongside you guys as well. as someone who's like totally versed in metaphysics and spirituality, it's been a while since I've had a chance to sit down with the laws of creation. So I'm excited to be here with each of you as well, to learn alongside of you, to be able to take some of your questions, to be able to help facilitate this space, and to really just be able to, again, take this knowledge with us beyond this broadcast as well. So Iain, hyping you up, man. Super excited to be able to have you here. And we'll just take a moment to chit chat. And if there's anything else, we'll get things rolling in the next couple of minutes. So Iain, welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is a great opportunity to be able to sit in front of everybody. And as I was going through the presentation that I'm going to share with everybody today, again, I was like, just thinking, man, if I could just take this and just implant it and plug it into people's minds and just have them have this in their awareness and be able to apply it to their lives, it would really make things so much simpler. So I'm really glad to have so many people on today, and everybody, thank you so much for being here and just be able to bring you this stuff, because it's really made my life flow with a lot of ease and grace. And I wasn't always in that place. There was a time where I think I was living hell on earth, which I was creating unawarely. And having these laws in mind really allowed me to become more the master of my own destiny. So thank you so much for having me on and having me here. So I'm gonna share my screen here, and is there anything you want to say before we jump in?
Yeah, just before we jump in this with everyone here, before we even get into it, go ahead and connect with Iain if you haven't yet. Iain's on Instagram at Iain Grae, and also the My Evolved Life page. So I'll post a link for those into the YouTube and the Zoom. So for everyone here, even for those of you watching the recording, you'll find the info for the link. Take a second, connect, stay in touch. And again, we got lots more stuff coming your way. And also within this, you'll learn more about it. Iain also has a video series that you can find through his Sam cart, and we'll also post a link for that. It's at an affordable, accessible rate. And again, there's going to be some additional information there that you'll be able to continue to incorporate into your journey. So just inviting everyone to connect. This event is for beginners, for experts. And with that said, let's get things rolling. So Iain, passing it over to you, and we'll start off with the slides. Go right ahead.
Perfect. And that one of those video series is the full 14 laws. It's like a cinematography way of going through all of the laws. But today we're going to really deep dive, and we're going to relate into some sacred geometry and stuff like that. So let's get this screen shared here, and let me know when you guys can all see this. Looks like you guys should be able to see it here.
All good.
All right, great. So before we actually roll into this, I'm just going to invite everybody, grab a pen and pad. I want to make this really interactive. I want this to be stuff that's sticky and like actually engaging for you. So grab a pen and pad, and I'll have some prompts here to get you thinking about things. We're going to do some intention setting and so forth. Also, write down if there's something I say that you disagree with. Feel free to add it in the comments. Feel free to just write it down just as a note for yourself. I'm all for being challenged on this stuff. This is as I understand it. So I don't pretend to be like all knowing in any way, shape, or form. This is just what I've experienced and the way that I see it. So I'm open for growth and so forth. Grab yourself some water, snacks, or anything you might need to be more comfortable. And of course, like anything in life, the more you participate, the more you're going to get out of this. So feel free to drop things in the comments, and I'll come back to them. We have a lot of content to discuss, so I'll do my best to keep up with all of that. But I really want to keep this moving forward as quickly as possible, but still, get the information in. The one last thing that I don't have on here that I want to just mention to you guys is there might be some things that seem like they're confusing, and that's perfectly okay. Confusion is the mind attempting to understand a new paradigm. And we're here with Brendon with Paradigm Shift Central, right? So we're going to be hopefully creating some confusion at some point. Just let the confusion be what it is. Just know that it's there. Don't judge it. Don't beat up yourself on it. Feel free to drop in questions, of course. However, some things don't require an explanation. Sometimes they just require a little marination in the mind, and then the relationships start to build upon each other. So that's the first thing I wanted to say here. And then let's talk about a little bit what we're going to go over here today. Some topics for discussion. I'm just figuring out how to use my technology here. It's the first time I used Canva to do a presentation like this. So we're going to start off. I'm going to tell you a little about who I am, have a short little opening ceremony. Then we're going to get into sacred geometry, because sacred geometry shows us a visual of how these laws are created in a way that we can't describe with words. And then we're going to dive into law of divine oneness, and then the law of vibration. And then we're going to bring it together for some applications that we can do immediately in our life. So jumping into who am I, or who is this guy that has a name, Iain Grae? So the truth is, I play many roles, and I don't feel like I'm defined by any one of them. At one point, I would say I was a motocross racer, for example. And right now, I would say I'm a family man, right? In many ways, like that is the primary thing to me, is hanging out with my family and making sure I create something that's really beautiful there. You know, I've been an author. I've written several books, and created many programs on Evolve Life. And I've also built several businesses outside of this. I didn't get into this personal development type space or human potential space until later in life. Even though I practice these things, I've had several businesses. I retired by the time I was 30 years old, essentially. And it was by following these laws. And some of it I didn't even realize I was doing. I've also been a professional motocross racer. I got my professional license when I was a younger kid, and I still ride, I still surf, I still do lots of activities, even though I'm no longer a teenager. And I feel kind of ageless, to be quite honest. But none of this really actually matters. Like degrees, accolades, these things don't define us. They don't define me. I don't believe they define us as humans anymore. We've kind of transcended the times where truth comes from some kind of authority or some kind of certificate or some kind of thing on the wall. And we've entered a time where truth is spoken from the heart. And that's really what's in fashion. You know, I've also done it quite a bit with leading meditations, doing breath practices, sound healing ceremonies. And I'm really big into this, you know, ancient knowledge and bringing it back to today. For some reason we got away from. And the truth is, though, nothing really lights me up as much as having a way that I can share and improve the lives of those people around me. And that's really what I intend to do today. So please, you know, think about where this affects you in your life and how this feels on the inner world. Right. And how our inner world is actually, when we bring that to our outer world, that's really how we bring peace and love, is when we have that real centeredness within us. So that's really one of the big key components I want to consider today, is how do we bring what's going on in the inner world to the outer world, and from that divine oneness into vibration. So for the opening ceremony here, again, just check and make sure you have everything you need for this time we have here together. And let's take a moment and just stretch out. We can just do a little shoulder roll first. I actually really need this. I was at a water park yesterday with a bunch of teenagers and pulled a muscle in my neck, so I couldn't even turn my head this morning. So just take a second and tune into your body. Stretch everything on you. You turn the head to the left, then back to the right. I guess it's probably opposite from what you're looking at with me. Drop it down, bring it up. And bring the arms above the head. Stretch up, straighten that back. Lean to your right. Inhale, stretch up, and lean to the left. Just take a moment to really open up the body. If the body's open up, the mind will be opened up as well. Maybe make a twist to the right. And come back to the center and twist to the left. If you want to just stand up for a moment, I'm going to do that as well here. So you won't be able to see me perfectly, but I'm going to just get down and touch my toes a little bit. And come on up. Let's reach to the sky. Maybe even just do a little ringing the temple bell side to side here. Just twist the spine. Just open yourself up. A lot of times we forget to do this. We don't take the time to do it. We're going to be here for a little bit, so might as well get the body moving, maybe move the hips. It's the first time I'm dancing on TV, I feel like. Stretch to the left and right. Just kind of feel what's good inside of you. Maybe take a deep breath here. We're going to take a moment and just let's tune in to what's going on inside of us. Like it's only 4:00 where I am here in San Antonio, but some of us just got out of work and have busy days. Might have had some stress during the day, and let's just let go of all that stuff. So just for a moment, I invite you to just close your eyes, take a deep breath in through the nose. Breathing in through the nose is vital. It actually creates nitrous oxide when you breathe in through the nose, and that's laughing gas. So it's actually going to raise your vibe right away just by making sure you take a deep inhale, maybe a deep belly breath in through the nose. And just take a few breaths there. Sit up straight. Find yourself. Find the position that you're in. And exhale. And just tune into your body. And just breathe at your own pace. Just do a scan from head to toe and see if there's any place that's like really tight or really open, any place in the body that might need a little attention. So if you got a little pain, like I do right now in this back shoulder, which is, it's very rare for me to be in this position, but pretty dehydrated out here. It's hot in Texas. And just breathe into that area and let it open up. We have pain because it wants us to give it attention. So if we breathe into it, we might notice it relax a little bit and just let go of any tension in the body on the exhale. Just do that full body scan and see if there's anywhere that needs a little extra love and breathe into it. And then on the next inhale, at the top of the next inhale, just look and see if there's anything going on in the mental body. Just is the mind racing? Is it calm? Let's see if we can really start to slow things down and create a little bit of space, a little time within ourselves by breathing in. Just a few times and see if we can calm that mind of ours. And calming it might just mean not holding on to the thoughts that are coming through, depending on where you are. Or you might even have that blank, clear, reflecting pool. It's so beautiful. Just breathing in. And creating a little pause. Top and exhaling. One more time like this, breathing into the belly. And exhaling any of that busyness out. And then on the next inhale, let's just check our emotional body. Is there a certain primary emotion that we're feeling? Maybe there's a handful of them. Do we feel anxious or do we feel love? Whatever it is, just become aware of it and breathe into it. And really feel it at the top of the inhale, and then just let it go. Even if it's the most beautiful emotion that you've ever had in your life, or it's the most tense, uncomfortable one, just let it go. Create a little emptiness within us. Breathe in again. And just check how we're feeling inside and just letting it go. We want to create flow here, lots of flow. Nothing's good, nothing's bad, nothing's right or wrong. It just is. And we just want to keep that flow and movement going. We don't want anything to get stuck. Just keep feeling it, letting it move. Just do one last scan through the body. Find that calmness, that stillness within. Let's connect, breathing into our hearts, feeling the love that we have within, that connection to source, the divine creator, that life force within. And I'm just going to ask that divine source for guidance and sharing with each of you all today. I'm going to actually thank that divine grace for all that's already been provided, even bringing my hands to prayer position, just saying thank you, thank you, thank you for bringing us all together today. To allow us each to deepen our connection in whatever way is available for us today. Really tune in to the God that lives within each of us, that force that gives us life. Thanking for this life experience that we have here. This technology to connect in this way. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. Just feel what's going on within. And with that in mind, I invite each of you to take a moment and just set an intention for today. What is it that you would like to get out of this? What brought you here today? And at the end, if we were all done here and 2 hours has passed, what would be different? What would be expanded upon? Would you have more clarity on something specific, or maybe broadly? Would you have some kind of insight and new inner knowingness that allows you to experience and walk through life a little differently? Would maybe the actions that you've been looking to figure out, like the next step on something you're working on, be there? Or maybe it's just actually the will to do something that we know that we need to do anyway. Just whatever that intention is, just write it down. Take a moment and just write it down right now. And I'll give you about 15 seconds, 20 seconds to do that. Take a sip of water myself. And I have a premise for sharing this with everyone, and a belief around law. Like, what is law? So all laws are God's laws. All true laws are God's laws. And I believe that we can see these laws as patterns in nature and the behavior and interaction between objects and individuals. There's certain things that just seem to continuously repeat themselves when we are in order. And then there's things that seem to happen when we are out of order or out of ease or diseased. And when we're familiar with the universal or God's laws, then we can actually apply them to attune our internal compass. We no longer have to look out here to figure out what we should do next. We don't have to call people for advice or be told what to do. We actually can get really in tune with our internal compass, which guides us then with confidence, flow, joy, grace. And I bet everybody that's on here has experienced this, where they just felt that way. And I bet everybody's experienced not being that way. So this is something that will happen to us usually. And then something else happens that seems to kind of knock us to the side and we forget about it. And all too often, until we're brought back into looking at these laws and have this kind of foundation, we can get off our path to a degree. And then it's very easy to come back on, though. It's just as easy to fall off as it is to come back on. And so we have the game of human existence, the game of path to enlightenment, right? Moment of enlightenment. And then we forget 2 seconds later, and that's God playing hide and go seek with himself, or as I think Aaron Apke would say. So what are the origins of these laws? And I'll just tell you a little bit about where I found out about them at first. So I learned about these. I was building a business here, and actually in San Antonio, opened a motocross track, and it was a lot of work. I mean, it was 12 to 15 hours a day, 6 days a week. And I barely had any free time, but for some reason, my spirit called me to start studying Gnosticism. This is about 2013. And if you've never heard of Gnosticism, there's a group called Aegeic. I think they're called Vopis now. And I would go sit in this woman's house, and it was just me and 1 or 2 other people. And even though I had this scarce time, I would spend 2 to 3 hours a week, or 2 or 3 hours each time, 2 to 3 times a week, and even get homework, because the content was so incredibly rich. It's a Christian belief system with Jesus at the center, but yet they taught yoga, meditation, tantra, Kabbalah, the Kabbalion, runes, rituals, like all kinds of sacred knowledge, and put it under one umbrella and showed how it kind of worked together. And it seemed like there was no religion or belief set that was left out. And there was a lot of even indigenous traditions that were included. And it was during these courses that I was first exposed. And if you read the Kabbalion, which I think was written around 1783, if I remember correctly, you may have been exposed to the seven Hermetic principles by Hermes Trismegistus. And this guy's said to have incarnated 3 times. And he incarnated each time to deliver this knowledge and bring it to the people. And some people say that it's Trismegistus because of his unity of the trinity of the mind, body, spirit complex. And you also might know Hermes as the Greek god. And the Hermes, the Greek god, that story is prior to our chronology. So basically before our time. So if we look back, this is literally before time existed as we know it. So this stuff is old. This stuff is old. This is stuff from the beginning and before time. And some say that Hermes was also Thoth. Have you ever heard the emerald tablets of Thoth in Atlantis? Hermes and Thoth, same person, wrote those. And he's even tied to Ra in some traditions. So that could be the three that he might have been incarnated as. So this stuff is old knowledge, and it was information that was used to build the pyramids. We'll show some stuff that's before or later on here. We'll show some imagery of how this gets tied in. But this stuff is way, way early times. So let's look at the word law, though. Let's look at what these laws of the universe are. And when most people think about the word law, they think of rules that are prescribed by authority, like a sense of righteousness. There's right and wrong. There's justice, and there's arguments, and there's motions, and there's judgments. But that's, in my opinion, in my observation, that's a trick. That's a trap. See, I don't believe law is prescribed by man. I believe law existed way before man was aware of it. So if that's your belief of law, even if you're an attorney, please do me just suspend your belief and put it to the side, and we can come back to it. You can argue with me in the comments and stuff like that. But let's just put whatever we think we know to the side and look at law a little differently. So let's just delete that idea that law has anything to do with lawyers or judges or justice or juries, and actually look at the origins of the word law. And the word law actually comes from the idea of how things are arranged. So if we're going to look at the laws of the universe, we'd have to look at how things are arranged naturally, patterns that we might see in nature, how things just happen when we don't go interfere with it. That, I would say, would be the law. So if we start to look around us and observe how the law has been set up, or better yet, laid out, right, to be laid down, then we're going to start to see these images that start to look the same no matter where we look, if it's big or small in nature. And we can watch and see how these patterns consistently show up. And then when we see these patterns, and I'm going to show you some of these, we can see the order to it and how things flow. And then we can work with that law to make our lives better. And we can maybe even bend those laws in some way. So if we can see these patterns on a physical plane, such as in nature, or in a mathematical equation that represents the mental or more spiritual plane, then we can start to see these representations as patterns even before they come made manifest. So my intention is to really reveal these patterns and help you harmonize with them. And then once we flow and learn how to flow with these laws, our sense of knowingness, our confidence, and our trust in that creative force in life is expanded. And that gives us courage. That gives us more faith. So today we're going to start by looking at some patterns that are going to give us some clues to things that we can't necessarily verbalize. We can't put into, it's ineffable, it's unexplainable. And many of you probably have seen many of these patterns before, but we're going to put them together and create relationships between them. And you've probably heard of the term sacred geometry. So we're going to look at sacred geometry, and don't worry, we're not going to get too heavy on the math, nothing beyond a little addition and division. And I'll keep it short form because we're going to spend more time in the application, but I'm just going to allow you guys to see how it proves itself time and time again. And then, of course, there may be stuff beyond this that I am not aware of. There may be higher laws or superior laws, whatever you want to put it, that I'm not aware of. So if that's the case and you know about it, please put it in the comments because I am all for learning. So if you know something I don't, and we're not going to have time to get into everything today that I know, obviously, I would love to learn from you, and I'm all about that. So let's move on here. And a quick reminder, if there's anything that's meaningful for you, jot it down, share it in the comments. And if there's anything that isn't like jiving with you, please let me know. And we can learn from this. So I'm just adjusting my screen here a little bit because I got my picture on top of some of this stuff that I want to really share with you guys. So we're going to start with the flower of life. You probably have seen this image. And I'm going to say that this pattern, it shows up repeatedly in nature. I'm going to show you where. And this pattern represents existence or beingness. It has 19 circles. You can see the flower petals in here. You can see how my eyes are created in an almond shape, just like the almonds where these images overlap. So if you look just below the center of it, you can see an almond shape, right? I'll show you how this gets created as we go along here. I think of the flower of life like the fabric that holds all possibility for existence to even appear, whether it's through sound or sight or any one of our senses. Anything gets created because of this. So if I was going to make a model of space-time, and you've probably seen this in movies or in like 3D type renderings, usually they have like graph paper as a way of building this stuff out. I would use the flower of life rather than using just a bunch of squares. And if you notice in nature, there's nothing that has right angles. So I would definitely use this to say this is how things naturally occurs, is more in this with these arcs. And if we look at this, we have the 19 circles, and 1 plus 9, if we start to reduce this down, equals 10. And 1 plus 0 equals 1. And if we look at like computer code, for example, 1 in code means yes. Yes to the existence of whatever it is. So this flower of life represents just that something exists. The first stage is beingness in the law of ones, 7 densities of consciousness. So if we were to overlay it with that, this means something can exist because we have this 19 that reduces down to 1 here. You can also see the floral print in it. And this is believed to be a secret symbol hidden within flower life, which is said to hold the most significant sacred patterns of the universe. And I'm going to show you what some of those are. It's believed to be a blueprint or framework of existence with the fundamental patterns for everything from atoms to planets and everything between, smaller, larger. You got it. And you might also notice that the image is like a web or a matrix of existence. And it doesn't convey movement. It's just like a flat beingness. And if we were to think about this on a spiritual plane, this is the concept, the idea, or the code, and the behind the pattern of the language of creation. And then when this echoes out into manifestation in the 3rd dimension, actually light bends around each one of these angles, each one of these corners, which gives us the appearance of matter. And we're gonna get into this even more. And I'll show you how this works. And it does this infinitely. So where there's their patterns, there is law. So we're going to start looking at some repetition. If you look at the lotus, you can see the flower of life in this image. Very naturally, in most flowers, you can see this. So just take a look at this lotus flower and see how this is like blooming out, right? And this is often overlooked. The relationship because it's a 2-dimensional image and we live in a 3-dimensional world. But here we can see on a 3 dimensions how this flower of life comes to life in the lotus flower. And then we have structure and form, the next phase. So when we reduce the flower of life, we come up with what's called Metatron's cube. Now, Metatron's cube is really interesting because it actually holds the structure for all organic life. These are the shapes that we see every single day, all inside of this cube. Plato had come up with the 5 platonic solids, and they're all within this cube. And I'm going to show you in the next slide exactly how that breaks down. But just look at this and just ingest the way this looks, because words don't really convey the meaning nearly as much as what the feeling as you look at this will come through. So the 5 platonic solids are the 5 known shapes and structures that act as the foundation for all organic life. It's also known to be protection from evil. So here's all of the shapes that are within this Metatron's cube, the 5 platonic solids. So this is the code, the idea, the spiritual idea that can now manifest into the physical shapes we use every day. So this is the star tetrahedron, the octahedron, the hexahedron, the icosahedron, and the dodecahedron. These are all the shapes that we see that create everything. So these also parallel with each other element. So we have fire, air, earth, water, and ether. They're the building blocks of all creation found in all life form, all minerals, all music, all sound, and language. These are the things that occur naturally, these shapes, from a reduction of the flower of life to Metatron's cube, and then using these certain circles within the Metatron's cube to create those shapes. Now, this is where we get our structure and form. So even you look at this snowflake here, like you can see, I imagine you can see, that is Metatron's cube right there. So as water turns into a snowflake, it grows in the shape of Metatron's cube. This thing only has a lifespan, probably of a few minutes, depending on where it falls, and they're shaped this way. And this is just water, which has a certain consciousness to it, and it's following this pattern in nature. So we can start to see by watching this, witnessing this, the process, how it unfolds into all creation. Nature is always creating in these patterns. And these patterns are the basis for the laws. Now, from these patterns, we can start to develop some geometry and some mathematical formulas. And the growth in animation comes out of this little chart here, which is known as phi, or Fibonacci sequence, or the golden ratio. Although there's small nuance between Fibonacci and phi, and I'll explain what that is in a moment here. This is the concept of how things grow. This is now all of a sudden animation becomes possible. So if we start to tie in the flower of life to this formula here of phi, we start to see how things become animated. So 0 plus 1 is 1, 1 plus 1 is 2, 1 plus 2 is 3, 2 plus 3 is 5, 5 plus 3 is 8, 8 plus 5 is 13. And we start to see how this ratio continues to grow and unfold out in this spiral form. If we look at that lotus that we looked at before, anything in nature, we'll see this spiral and everything. I'll start to show you some more of this. So nature creates on behalf of the formulas provided by the laws of the universe. Now, the golden ratio is a special number, and it's found by dividing a line into two parts so that the longer part is divided by the smaller part is also equal to a whole length divided by the longer part. So putting that simply, we could say that the golden ratio, the value is approximately equal to 1.618. And it's got this symbol here that you see on the graph, which is phi, the 21st letter of the Greek alphabet. And then we have the Fibonacci numbers, which is this Fibonacci sequence down below that I read off. 0 plus 1 is 1, 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 1 is 3, and so forth. And when we start to actually divide these numbers, we start to get back to the ratio, that golden ratio, the 1.618. So check this out. If we were to take the numbers 3 and 5 and do a division, 5 divided by 3, we're going to get a 1.6666. If we do it by 21 and 34, we start going farther out, we're going to get a 1.619. And if we go to 233 divided by 144, which is way out there, we get to the 1.618. This is in everything in nature. So let's just look and see how this actually works, because I'm just giving you words here to try to explain this, and it's a little bit math. Let's see if we can actually see how this works. Here we have shark eye shell. This is like an infinite flat fractal. This is how the shark eye grows, right? If you ever seen one of those shells. Here we have an ocean wave. I'm sure you guys have all seen an ocean wave. Again, we see the exact pattern. Now let's look at this. I know as the green rose. There might be another name for this flower. We can see how these leaves are laid out in this same exact ratio. And again, this is one of my favorite plants. We have this, it's a ginger plant. This is actually right from my backyard. It grows in this way. And once I see this, like I couldn't unsee it. So what ends up happening is we have the multiple spirals actually going all over everything. Like they're everywhere, whether we see them or not in nature, they are there consistently. And they start to create some really unique things. So let's look and see what happens when we get more than one spiral on top of each other and what we can create with it. So here's just a setup, and just take a look at this. I mean, you could see it's kind of like two hearts, right? You drew out two hearts. Pretty interesting there. And just different ways of looking at this where you have more than one. And then we can move into here and the human body. Look at the brain. You have the whole prefrontal cortex of the brain here. And you can actually see how the brain gets created from this Fibonacci sequence. What else do we have here? How about, you ever hear the saying, there's beauty in symmetry? Look at how this lays out and draws out the eyes perfectly, straight down the nose and the bifurcation of the body, right? And not just up here in the eyes, but also down below in the clavicle. Now she's a little bit turned, so we don't have a perfect image of it, but I think you can get the point. Very, very clear. What else do we see? That's beautiful here, right? Oh my gosh, look at that. The breasts, right? Again, a little bit of an angle, so we don't have that clearly, but then all the way up into the shoulders, you can see how this matches back with the clavicle. Again, not a straight, perfect image, but you can see if you just kind of twisted the body a little bit, this sequence just is continuously happening through our body. And if you think about the chakras, if you know anything about the chakras, you have your throat chakra and your heart chakra right here. If we even went back here, right, we have our third eye to our throat chakra. So this gets very interesting when we start to see how these patterns are on everything. What else do we have? What else? What can we get more risque? Right? Oh my gosh, look at that. The butt, right? The perfect butt. And then we also have the plumber's crack, right? So if the last one didn't leave an impression on you, maybe this one does, right? So this, you can see this so clearly, even in the human body, something that once I saw this, I was like, man, this is everywhere in nature. So why are we stepping outside of this? This is the law. This is the law. Now you could try this right now in your shoulders, right? Our shoulders, do this with your shoulder. Notice how the movement, you have to tighten it up and come wide. Your arms, when you're swimming, are in this same kind of movement, right? So all of our bodily movements are in patterns, right? It's the same Fibonacci pattern. It's pretty amazing. This is all of our hips are the same exact way. And then this ripples out into the most famous in art and design. Look at Mona Lisa here. Perfect Fibonacci. You could do the same thing with Leonardo da Vinci's, most of his works, actually. You can go through with it. The Last Supper even has a lot of this. If you follow Robert Edward Grant, you'll start to see he does this in a gazillion things. And here you got again with the pyramids, you got with the Taj Mahal. This Fibonacci sequence is this beautiful thing that we replicate knowingly or unknowingly, that just creates some of the most profound beauty that's out there. So that's the Fibonacci sequence. So let's talk about the sacred seven and the seed of life. I'm going to bring these all together. We're not going to get too much more sacred geometry. This is the last one, I promise, and we'll start getting into the laws. But we have the sacred seven, and the seed of life is the seven circles. The seven circles in the center of the flower of life. And here we can start to see how life, like actually that idea of growth and life, is birth. And we start to see a lot of cycles in our life. We have the 7 days of the week. We have the 7 days of creation. We have the theory of 7 generations. If you follow the law of one, we have the 7 densities of light, or 7 densities of light consciousness. We have our 7 chakras. We have the 7 musical notes. We have the 7 colors of a rainbow, right? These are the things, the 7s that we have. And here's these 7 circles that start to birth this amazing thing called life. And what ends up happening is there's a filtration or bending of light that occurs that creates the experience of life. And that's what this seed of life represents. You have the flower right inside of it, right in the center there. You have multiple Vesica Pisces right in here. And you have this ability to now create the seed of something that can grow out infinitely. So let's just kind of like look at this in the chakras for a moment, right? So here you can look at this image and you can see how overlaid on the flower of life, the 7 chakras actually appear in unison with the lines of the flower of life. So a chakra is any of the points in the human body that are described in the yogic philosophy as centers of vital energy. Let me play that again for you guys. And this is especially the 7 centers that are on the spinal column. And here we can see how those 7 colors unfold to create a human's energetic body, which is overlaid onto the physical body. Now, chi energy is stored and manufactured and radiated from each one of these areas. And as each chakra unfolds into infinity, there's smaller seeds, just as the 7 chakras are also put into part of a larger seed. So, you have the macrocosm and the microcosm that erupts from these 7 chakras. So with the flower of life, or Metatron's cube, the golden ratio, and then the seed of life, we can begin to see the animation of life taking place through these repeating patterns. And this is where we can actually start to deduct our laws of the universe to apply both to the physical and something in the spiritual planes as well. So the seed of life moves us beyond just the idea of animation, but actually to the idea of like life force or vital energy or chi or spirit. And with this awareness, we're ready to attempt to start to put the laws into words. So I'm just going to pop on here to make sure we got, yep, okay, we're good. So let's get into the laws. So universal law. Seeing the patterns is what exposes the universal laws. We can use the power of our observation to test these theories through scientific methods. And we can use each other to confirm those. And when we can use each other to confirm them, that's our shared external experience. That would be like the shared Maya, the shared illusion that we live in. But the external observation is just the beginning. What we see on the outside, what we see out here, is actually a mere reflection of what we hold to be true within ourselves. On the inner, non-physical dimensions, pre-manifestation, pre-space and time. Oop, sorry about that, guys. I had a chat here pop up and hit the wrong button.
Iain, that's awesome information that we've got shared so far. Sorry if you were calling me. I just had to step out to feed the cats there for a second.
No, I actually just hit a chat popped up and
do we need a?
No, it's all good. When I went to close it, I closed my window.
Restart the presentation stuff. All right. Well, let's just take a moment
here. Right now, I got it all under control. I just
perfect.
Share my screen and reopen that window. And
perfect. I was going to jump in
for your patience here. I'm almost there.
I was going to jump in a couple minutes anyway, just to touch base at the top of the hour and just to remind you that because I know sometimes when we're presenting, we kind of lose track of time there and everything like that. How are we in terms of how much more we got to go? Do we feel
we're good? I'm guessing we probably have another 20 minutes, and then I'm going to jump into any comments that anybody has.
Perfect.
Unless something gets, we get real deep into something here, but I think we're probably another 20 minutes or so. So
awesome. And as we get through that, I'd be happy to jump on and just kind of chit chat with you about some of the stuff and review some of the things we've learned today. So.
Yeah, I mean, before I go into sharing the screen, is there anything that I had put out there? Guys, anybody have any specific questions you guys want answered before we actually jump into the laws? Or Brendon, if you have anything?
I mean, for me, this is really interesting for me because I remember, within my journey, and I'm sure a lot of people relate to this, like observing sacred geometry was such a powerful shift. And it's one thing to just be able to, like read about it and everything. But when you start looking at it and you just become more aware of it, it really just you can't unsee it at that point. It's kind of like seeing like the code of the matrix, so to speak, is one of the ways I've referred to it as. And so again, at this point, it's really cool just to be able to kind of like get a refresher on all of this content. I know a lot of it's going to be new for some people. And honestly, when it comes to being able to see the bigger picture, I think sacred geometry is a great starting topic for us to really be able to branch out from. So I'm excited to see where we're going to continue to branch out from here. So yeah, that's all I have to share at the moment.
Okay, great. And we'll get back on here. I'm glad everybody's enjoying this.
Yeah, thank you again, everyone. And continue to leave any comments, questions, and we'll continue to field those as we go through the presentation. So back to you, Iain.
And for those of you that caught some spelling errors in there, thank you. We'll get those cleaned up. So appreciate it.
So quick question from the chat, Iain, if you want, I can just, so this is an interesting question. It might just be something to dive into for a minute, and then we'll get back to the course that you got. Heather in the YouTube, Heather in the YouTube asked, "Do you have any idea on where the mathematical pattern came from? The designer is ... So I mean, that's a very interesting, deep philosophical question in itself. Something I've thought about too. What do you think, Iain? Where does it quote unquote come from?
So, I mean, the Fibonacci sequence, that pattern comes from actually just taking numbers as we sequentially add them up and then divide them by each other. So if you have, it starts at 0, right? You got 0 and then you got 1. And you take 0 plus 1, that's 1. 1 plus 1, that's 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 plus 3 is 8. And then what we actually do is we take the larger number and divide it by the smaller number. And that's where we get that 1.618 number. Now, it's not always that number. As we go farther up, we get closer to that. And in the creator's design is actually what happens is in a plant, for example, or a tree, all the branches, they fall at this ratio. And the ratio changes slightly, but it's made to maximize how much sunlight each leaf receives and also capture water as it falls from the sky. So it's very clearly in whoever the creator of this experience is, design this in a way to maximize efficiency and flow. And that's why I think it's so important to look at the sacred geometry and see how that lines up with what is law, because it's designed in this way to maximize efficiency and flow. Yeah, that's as far as I could say about it. Maybe somebody that's a mathematician has a little more clarity, or maybe you have more clarity on it.
Yeah, I'll just jump in for a second if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
And with this question, and Heather, thank you again for your question. And again, with this, I know this is a big question, but one way, it's not even so much the idea of just like where did the mathematical equation come from, or what did it come from, but more so why? Like, why does it exist? And you already answered that, and that's exactly something that I remember reflecting, where I was just like, whoa, this is. In my words, I described it as the universe putting forth its best effort. That was the way I explained it. Like, all of these patterns, they're like energy conservation. The universe it has excellent utility in terms of resourcing its energy in the best way possible to the best of its ability. So like, to me, it was like, it wasn't the where did it come from, but it's like, oh, the why is because in order for life to propagate in the way it does, at least from one angle. But yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And we could take that also, the flower of life, that is 19 circles, and we reduce that number 19 down, it becomes 1, right? 1 plus 9 is 10, and 1 plus 0 is now 1. And if we look at computer source code, for example, 0 is like doesn't exist. It's a no. There's nothingness. And 1 is right? It does exist. So the flower of life, the way that I interpret it anyway, is like, there is something now. There is something. And that's why we have the 19 in that number. So the seed down to the 7, that just seems to be a pattern that just keeps showing up. And I beyond that, I don't have a clarity yet up until now. I could start making some guesses, but great question. Thank you for asking, because it causes us to think about this. And the fact that we're even thinking about this means that we're bringing it to awareness, and we're going to start to make some meaning around it. And it's going to start to give us some more clarity in areas of our life, and in some kind of subtle ways that we might not have guessed. So the universal law, I mean, everything that we see, we have this shared experience. So once we can actually agree on a shared external experience, we can take that information and begin to have a conversation about our shared internal spiritual dialogue, things that we can't point to, we can't touch, we can't see. And that's really that Maya, or social memory complex, as Ra would say. And this allows us to create some kind of agreement around the laws of which manifestation take place in this three-dimensional realm that we're experiencing, from the spiritual to the physical existence. existence. So as far as I can tell, like these laws don't violate any belief systems of any major religions. And actually, when I look at them and closely, they seem to reinforce each other. It's almost like this pattern that these traditions have tried to carry through stories, are actually being revealed through numbers and the sacred geometry and the actual laws that we're about to get in here. So they all stems from the law of the divine oneness. And as we examine each one of these laws, we're going to be able to see how they always draw us back to some kind of unification. The more conscious we become of these universal laws of creation, the more we're going to actually flow and work in harmony with that blueprint, and our lives become that way. And I say this straight up from experience. I know there was a time in my life where it was very challenging and I was having a lot of difficulties and experiencing a lot of what we could call suffering. And quite honestly, I feel like I've really transcended that. Not that I don't have like surprises and issues at times, but by actually taking these laws into consideration around every single one of my steps in life, I find myself being much more present than I've ever been before, and being in the now, and things kind of just unfold and happen for me rather than to me. So I know that's not the case for everybody out there. And a lot of it kind of starts with just having faith and trusting in them. And then once we have that and start moving with it, things get significantly easier. And I know there's a lot of people straight, and other people might be like, what's this guy talking about? But as we start to apply these time and time again, everybody I've shared this with that actually puts it into play is like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Life can be so much easier than I was making it being. So that's my intention here, is really just get everybody in flow. Because when we're in flow and we're connected to that divine source and in that faith, that's how we usher in the new earth. That's how we make this world what we want it to be. And we have a collective responsibility to do that. If you're on this call right now, you've got a higher level of consciousness than anyone that doesn't realize that it's a choice. You know, it's a choice to create your reality. So that being said, let's dive into the laws. So we're going to talk about the law of divine oneness and the law of vibration. These are just the first two. And these patterns really just think of as a foundation, as a way to reverse engineer the laws that actually exist. And remember, if you want to get into the other ones, there is that course that I made. It's actually more of just videos that just break down all the 14 laws of creation. They're like 5 minutes each. So that's already in the comments there. So the law of divine oneness, all that is stems from a single, unified, intelligent, infinite source. So when I say it's a single, it doesn't mean it's like really small or really big. It's infinite. It's beyond our comprehension of numbers. Maybe somebody on here can tap into that, right? That what that infinite is. Maybe we all had moments of that. So there's only one source, and that source is unified. And if you think about people that follow the Bible or the Torah, right, which is Christianity, Judaism, Muslim, and then some others, they would say that God is omnipotent and omnipresent. That would mean that God knows everything and is everywhere all at once, right? So that's that concept of infinity. That's that oneness that I'm talking about here. So this is completely in line with what these books talk about. Not necessarily what some preachers talk about, but it is what these books talk about. So all of humanity and God are one. We are always connected to the force of God, whether we know it or not, because the energy of God is everywhere all at once and permeates through all things living, or we'd say inanimate, even though there is still slight animation there, or consciousness, material things, as well as the knowledge of God is infinite. and it's always available to us. So everything that exists, seen and unseen, are connected to each other. They're inseparable, completely inseparable from each other, all in a field of divine oneness. And that divine all-knowing, or the matrix, the pure consciousness or universal mind energy, something sometimes we call like the life force or God, everything is one. And we are the seed of life and the flower of life all at once. But yet we're incarnated in these bodies. And when we're incarnated in these bodies, we have a limited perspective. We have a very limited perspective of all that is. That's kind of the idea of being incarnated in these bodies. So we can actually be less than that one, and we can have some kind of fraction of an experience where we're a fractal. And the word fractal comes from fracture. That means to break off. So now we can identify with our physical bodies, right? And I could be like, I'm a man. Or I could identify with my job title, right? I could be like, I'm a boss. Or I could identify with my thoughts and be like, I'm crazy. Or what's crazy actually comes from the word fractured, believe it or not. Or I could be like, I'm smart, or whatever it is. But everything we think, we say, we do, they all have a corresponding effect on each other and the world around us. And that's how we can see how we are one as well. So as we begin to comprehend this law of divine oneness, that I am one with all that is, we can also gain a deeper understanding of our connection to all things. And this allows us to work in a deeper harmony with a source, or God, or whatever you want to call it, Gus, right? God, universe, source. And as we embody these experiences, these laws, we now start to move from an understanding to what I call an understanding, like a knowingness of how they're all related and they all overlap and they govern the world that we live in. And then as we get that inner knowingness, it brings us to a new phase of evolution. So I know when I incarnated, I wasn't at the phase of evolution of my consciousness. And that's where I think a large part of humanity is right now. When I first, I guess in some phases, in some ways, I was evolving my consciousness, but unaware of doing it. If you look at normal concepts of evolution, Darwin looked at the finches and how their nails and their beaks were different based on which island they were in, and they actually changed the way that they grew based on what they needed to actually be able to get worms out of the lava that had melted in the Galapagos. And that's where that concept came from, is we evolve physically in some way. But now we're in this place of evolution of consciousness. And when we become aware of that, we can actually direct our attention and begin to bend the reality we experience based on our own individual's heart's desires or heart's intentions. So that it's really exciting at first, but it's also a very big responsibility. So how do we do that, though? How do we connect into this oneness? How do we make sure that we can connect into this oneness so that when we go out into the world, we can stay present with the God that's within, with all of our words and our actions? So the main thing is really just taking the time to tune into our connection with source. And then it starts to become more obvious that the source of life extends far deeper than this meat body or the capsule of the human body, or the thinking mind, or even the identification with my mood. I'm angry, right? Or I'm sad, or my emotions. And when we tune into this source, we often will experience flashes of insight and inspiration, enlightenment, enjoyment. And if you notice just those words, they all start with insight, inspiration, enlightenment, which is in, enjoyment, inner light. So we can let go of all these busy demands of the mind and the physical world and start to realize that life extends far beyond just the body and the mental plane. So if we take a moment and connect with that sense of divine oneness, one of my favorite ways to do it is breath, we'll start to really feel what that oneness is. So maybe we'll do that real quick here. We'll do 3 minutes of just a little bit of breathing. We'll just do some belly breathing, and I'll guide you through that. If you guys have a moment, you can look here on the slide. There's lots of ways of doing it. Before we jump into the breath, just pointing out, we have meditation, we have breath work, we have yoga, we have prayer, we have other faith practices. There's dance and movement, there's sports, there's sound, there's writing, and there's just practicing presence and really being aware and picking out every single detail in the room. So for a long time, I didn't even know about meditation or what that was, but I was really present because I was racing motorcycles, and you have to be really present to do that because things are happening quick. And if you're not, you end up on the ground. So I had some kind of meditation. I would get into a flow state. This happens to people all the time in swimming, tennis, other sports, same thing. Salvador Dali used to actually put honey on his mustache when he was painting, and the bees would come around. But what it would do was force him to keep his presence high when he was painting, right? So we can do whatever we want to get that presence. It doesn't have to just be sitting there and doing mantras, which is one very great way to do it. So it's really up to you. You probably already have a practice, and it's just a matter of getting deeper with that. But right now we're going to just do a breath. So just take a moment, straighten that spine, drop the shoulders, bring the chin back, and just kind of pull the top of the head up, kind of really create some space from head to the bottom of your spine. And we're going to breathe, inhaling with our nose, exhaling with our nose. And we're just going to breathe into our belly to start, and begin now. Full breath in, filling the belly, then filling the rib cage, and then filling the top and holding at the moment, and just letting go and exhaling with the nose. And you can go at your own pace. Again, breathing in, filling the belly, the ribs, the top of the chest, holding for a moment at the top, and just letting go. Again, filling the belly, the ribs, and the chest, holding at the top and letting go. And the next inhale, when you breathe in, just go at your own pace and look at the air that's coming in through the nose as light filling up, coming in through the nostrils up to the third eye. And as you get to the top of your breath, drop that energy into the heart. Notice it like light filling the body, and exhaling. Next inhale, filling the nostrils with light as we breathe in into the third eye, filling it with light. Into the chest, drawing that light down into the heart. And exhaling. At your own pace, inhaling through the nose, bringing in the light. Filling the body with light, holding it at the top. And just notice the stillness within. We're going to do 3 more of these, inhaling. Bringing the light within. And just hold your attention on that light as you exhale. And inhaling, breathing in the light. and holding at the top. And just connecting with that oneness, that light within the heart. And exhaling everything out in the biggest breath of all, filling up with light. And just notice that calmness within, holding at the top as long as you can. When you need to exhale, just let it out. Just sit in the silence for a moment. I'll give you guys about 30 seconds of silence here. And when you're ready, just open your eyes, just check in. Just notice if you felt that sense of oneness, sense of peace within. It doesn't take a whole lot to get there. It's just a matter of some consistent practice and intention in connecting with it. And we'll gain clarity, solutions. What's our next step with things? So we can see these patterns that all things stem from one source. Each creation contains a form, an animation, and some level of vital energy stored within it. And everything consists of and exists as energy. Every one of our subatomic particles, they're not fixed. In fact, they're actually flowing into and out of us right here and now. And these images that are in front of us here and the sounds that we're hearing every single in this moment right now, my voice, they're flowing through each one of us. And when somebody comes back and watches this as a replay, they come to our now, our time and space, and they connect us as one. It's pretty interesting. And if we can maintain that awareness that we are all one, each one of us maintain our awareness that when we look at each other, we are so connected. How do you think our behavior might change in our daily lives when we're connected to this oneness? We remember that we're not separate from our friends and our colleagues and every other being that ever existed, which keeps us connected to the reality that we don't have a life. We don't have a life. We are life. Each and every one of us are life unfolding out. And how do we express our oneness? So this is interesting because the moment we start expressing, it's paradoxical. We start expressing our oneness, we have to have separateness, right? We have different terms based on the plane of perception. We have our five senses, right? Our sight, our taste, our touch, our smell, and sound, right? Like what we hear and what we speak. And at first, most people think that this is what's real or true. But then as our consciousness evolves, we begin to realize that we also have our internal senses, our intuition, our thinking, our emotions, and each one of these are a dimension of awareness that is just a fraction or a fractal of the all. And as we can start to become more in tune or aligned with each of these senses and see, what we see matches with what we hear, and what we taste matches with what we smell, and what we touch matches, and then we can feel it as a harmonious match, and we can think it as a harmonious match. We intuit, we can start to perceive more oneness. We have a higher capacity to receive and perceive that oneness. So, when we can look at this in another way too, whereas we can describe the idea of oneness as love and light. You probably hear a lot of people, just everything's love and light, or truth and wholeness, or enlightened, right? But love is like something that seems to be like on the emotional plane, while light would be something on the visible plane. But they're really describing the same thing, but on a different plane of existence. Then we have the truth on the mental plane, right? Then we have the wholeness maybe on the physical plane, or maybe it's all of the planes, depending on how we're gonna look at it. And then we have enlightened on the spiritual plane as full of light, inside full of light. Right? But these are all actually describing the same thing, but just from a different plane. And again, these are words attempting to describe the inexplicable, the ineffable. And paradoxically, as soon as we do that, we have these different types of expressions. We've already created this illusion of separation. So the silence or the stillness is where we can find the most oneness. But then we want to go out in the world and we want to be doing, we want to be having, and we want to be playing, or whatever it is. So we've got to maintain that rooted sense of oneness while going out. And that's what brings us to the next law, which is the law of vibration. And this is where it starts getting a little bit, I don't want to say more interesting, because I think it's all interesting, but a little bit more applicable maybe. So everything that we perceive is a vibration, which has its own unique frequency. Every single thing. This phone has a frequency. This iPad has a frequency. This bottle has a frequency. This bottle has a different frequency of glass, right? I'm operating at a certain frequency. And the interesting thing about the things that are animated, like me and you, is that frequency is very malleable. So the law of vibration posits that everything, every atom, object, and living thing is in constant motion and vibrating at a specific frequency. Even if it seems like it's hard, it seems like it's really real, it's still vibrating at a specific frequency. And the form that is created is a direct result of the frequency that something's vibrating at. So we remember Metatron's cube, each platonic solid is made of a unique code or frequency of vibration. And what happens is our vibration reality is just a distortion of divine oneness. So we're just bending light or bending sound, bending the oneness into something that appears to be separate. So the illusion of separateness. So each word I speak is a vibration, and it's connecting us and aligning us to a certain frequency. If I'm going to say something like blue apple, the mind, everybody listening, probably had some kind of picture of blue apple in their mind. All the people that hear, all the ears that hear are going to have a blue apple. Now, this blue apple is less than the all, less than everything. We've separated it from divine oneness through a specific vibration. Now, the distortion of light gives us our colors to choose from, those 7 colors that we have. The spectrum of emotion gives us the gift of sensation, right? If we are the all, we're in that divine oneness state, there's just a beautiful isness that we experience. And at a certain point, it's beautiful to separate from that for a moment and be able to play this game of less than, so that we can have the separate experience. And sacred geometry gives us a structure for these vibrations to move from the spiritual plane to the physical reality. So each expression is a unique pattern formed by the bending of the light. And the flower of life creates that energetic structure for Metatron's cube, which allows us to have solids or matter to take shape. And each one of these shapes, again, has its own unique formula or vibration, or called what we could call a key signature. Light is essentially being distorted, giving it a unique shape and giving us our physical experience. And this all also links back to the law of attraction, which so many people are very fully aware of. And it's going to be exciting when we get there and kind of tie it back to all these superior laws, because most people know the law of attraction, but they don't know these laws. So they don't get what they really want to get, because they're not in vibrational harmony with it. And then they can't attract it. So let's talk about vibrational harmony for a moment, because this is so important. It's so important. On the left, we see a rose that is thriving. On the right, we see a rose that is dying, right? And what's happened is there's a distortion. You can see the pattern on the rose of the left. You can see very clearly the Fibonacci sequence coming out from the center of this rose. And on the right, not so much, right? And it's showing like death is on the horizon for this rose. It's not in harmony with the law. It's not in harmony with the sacred geometry, the pattern. And we know it's going to die now. And this is what causes the mutations or dis-ease on the physical, mental, or energetic, or emotional level, causes a dis-ease on the physical representation. So if we can root out dis-ease, which just means we're out of ease on that spiritual, physical, or the spiritual, emotional level, then the physical manifestation will be much cleaner. So one of the ways of doing that is to balance our chakras, right? How many of you guys have balanced your chakras or opened your chakras or done some work in this? How many of you had actually pulled the weeds out of your mind, right? Like that looping thoughts of negativity, and started planting flourishing seeds in our mind. And I see that we have a hand raised right here. We're actually really close to, well, we can actually jump into that in just a moment. Brendon, if you're there, if you can pull that up, that would be great.
For the hand raise, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
The hand raise was just from Lucy earlier. She said, I couldn't see any of the patterns being spoken about to all the things as they apply to it. I feel like, I think Lucy was just having a tech issue there, but I already responded to that into the chat. So I think that's what the hand raise.
I saw Stephanie Allen had raised her hand. Okay.
There another hand raise I'm missing? Stephanie, if you have something to add, feel free to just leave a comment into the Zoom chat and we can reply to it directly there. That'd be great.
Great.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So she was raising her hand to signify that she's worked with her chakras. That's what she was.
Right on. Cool.
There you go. Right on.
Perfect. Okay. Perfect. So you probably know, then you've probably experienced this already. Like we plant good seeds in our mind, we're going to be creating beautiful things. So we come in alignment. So kind of like the tuning of a piano or a guitar. You know, we could have the best musician on a piano, but if it's out of tune, it's not going to go anywhere. So we've got to start at the root. And that root is on the spiritual plane that's happening before the manifestation. So we can consciously, now we know, us on this call, no, not everybody knows this. I don't know if everybody knows this. Maybe everybody does know this. It seems to me like not everybody knows that we can actually choose to tune our vibration or frequency that we'd like to operate and create the life experience that we desire. And then once we know that, that's a responsibility to do that. So let's just look at like frequency for a moment. So we use hertz as a measure of frequency and vibration. And in this graph here, we can see how frequency changes along the wavelength and the size of objects, and also how things have certain levels of consciousness, not necessarily the awareness of self based on, but actually a level of consciousness based on their frequency. Now, humans emit a frequency, and that frequency is malleable. And when we know that our frequency is malleable, we can start to change things. We also have a visible light spectrum that we can see, but we know that there's things that we can't see that exist, like atoms, right? Unless we get a way to zoom in, right? They're too small for us to see. And everything we're perceiving right now has its own frequency. So that reality that we perceive is actually based on the frequency that we're operating at. So we don't perceive the reality of the atomic nuclei unless we have some kind of tool to do it, or gamma rays or X-rays or ultraviolet rays, or even infrared rays. We don't have the ability to see that with our own eyes. So we don't see microwaves, we only see the visible spectrum. But it does exist. So there's a lot more going on than meets the eye. So our eyes are limited in perceiving reality, is really the point that I want to make here, right? So seeing is believing, but maybe believing is seeing, or maybe there's even more to it. Maybe we can intuit something that we can't see. So we have to use all of our senses and get them in alignment. And that's through our vibration. And this one here is one of my favorite images. I came across this a few years ago, and it shows how our ability to perceive truth is dependent on the frequency that we're operating at. So if we're all operating at different frequencies in the plane of conscious awareness, when we look at this diagram, we can see that this purple line that's in the center of each one of these, that is representation of the plane of truth, or we could call that light, right? If we look at another dimension, so to speak. And that's on a linear plane. We're just going to say that this line is truth. And that's truth as what is, and or all is divine oneness. And then from left to right, we have the construct of time on here. So over time, we can see that there's three different bands here. And as they pass through time, the higher vibration, the blue band on the top, is crossing over this indigo line of truth much more often than the red band of the lower frequency on the bottom. So if somebody is in a lower vibration, they are going to perceive less truth of what's going on around them. They're going to be less aware of what's going on around them. And that could explain why, if there's 5 people that see a car accident or a robbery, they all describe it differently. They completely describe it differently. That could be why when you're in an argument with somebody, or confrontation, or whatever you want to call it, they don't see things the way you see them, because one of you is operating at a higher perspective or higher vibration. So you could sit there and talk. You might be at the higher vibration. You could give them all the evidence. You can give them all the details, but they cannot see. They literally cannot see it. They cannot perceive it because their vibration is lower. So rather than using explanation to get somebody up to your vibration, you could actually use a way to raise their vibration so that they can actually perceive what you're seeing. That's what you end up having to do, rather than explaining it to them and making it really real to them through proof or evidence. The easier way to do it is help them get their vibe raised so they can actually see more than they could previously see. So our whole reality is based on our frequency. And if we want to live in harmony with each other, the idea is, let's get us closer to love, light, truth, that higher vibration. And this is, just illustrates so well on this. So what can we do to perceive truth more accurately? Well, if we look at David Dawkins, has a scale of consciousness, And he assigned these different frequencies to emotional states, right? So somebody that's in shame, they have a much more limited ability to see the truth. And somebody that's in acceptance is going to have a much higher propensity to see what's real. So now his scale has from 1 to 1,000, and the numbers from 1 to 1,000 don't really represent something specific, but they're just kind of a way to guide and allow us to be able to understand this. But it's a logarithmic calibration of human consciousness and the correspondence level of reality. So the numbers are insignificant, but it's the relationship between consciousness levels. So fear is going to see a lot less than joy. So what Dawkins says is there's two main hurdles. And if you've never studied his work, check it out. These are at 200 and at 500. So 200 is actually that one of courage, and 500 is of love. Once we break through those, we can start to live life at a higher level of emotions, but breaking through them can be challenging for many people. But if we do, we're ultimately going to get to enlightenment. And the more higher up you are, the more expanded view point we're going to have. We're going to have an open mind. And in the lower states, we're going to be myopic or closed-minded. Now, what's really interesting is when we take this and we start to look at the perspective on what life experience is here. So if we look at this levels of consciousness on life, we can see how the world is impacted in different emotional states. Like nobody's in any one of these states all of the time. So that's one thing that's really important to look at. This again is malleable. So emotions could be explained as the general feelings that we experience. And our life view is actually the lens that we see the world through. And it changes based on the frequency that we're operating on. So if we take a moment and just, where are you right now in this moment on this, right? So if you're still with me here, almost we're about 2 hours in, you're definitely at willingness or maybe higher, right? You're probably trying to make sense of this, right, in some way, or accepting it, reasoning it. So you're probably on those higher stages than the average person. You're probably not watching this sitting here in guilt and shame. Now, just think about though, what is your primary emotional state? And you might be feeling more than one, so you can average it out too. And just write that down. And then maybe for a moment, think about where you are on any given day. Like, where do you normally reside at? Are you sitting here like worrying and mulling things over? Are you looping in your thoughts? Are you normally depressed? Or are you normally like keeping your vibe high in some way? Just look at the emotion and see what that emotion is. And what is the life view? See how that corresponds as well. Do you feel like life is meaningful, or do you feel like it's demanding? And see how that corresponds with the emotions that you have. Is this really real for you? Does this chart work for you? First of all, look at that. Ask that question. And how would you modify it? Because we're all unique here. We're all creating this Maya at the same time. And before you even like compare yourself to others or judge yourself, no matter where you are right now, just know you can change that in an instant. When we accept that, we can move to the chart on the right and look at like the societal problems in the world. How does this collective dream get impacted based on the emotions that we're in? So if I'm angry all the time and I go out there and I spit my anger on people, I go to the cashier and I get angry with them, and I'm walking down the street and I don't move out of the way for somebody that I could easily move out of the way because I've got an attitude of some sort. Like, how am I impacting the world? Am I lowering the vibration or am I raising the vibration? Right? And what is my intention behind that? Versus if I go out into the world with my arms open, Brendon had some free hug signs that he went out and he had at one point in time. Like, what do you think he was doing? So if we're here right now, we are a population of individuals probably operating at a higher frequency or level of consciousness than the majority. And if we can raise people to where we are and hopefully continue to raise ourselves, then we can solve the major problems of this planet. Our collective Maya, our collective dream, our social memory complex or illusions can be altered, but it's up to each one of us, each and every one of us, to not only keep our own vibe high, but to also make it compelling for others to join us. So we can plant seeds and we can help other people grow their own seeds through repetition. And we can really be the change that we want to see in the world. And it's going to have a major impact. Just look at this data that's right here. So we're going to just take a deeper look at the emotions versus internal, external criteria. And then we just have like, I think 3 or 4 more slides left. Thank you, everybody that's been on this long. I know these things are long, but I've really, when this stuff's in and it's all kind of together and it marinates a little bit, it really makes a big difference. So here we have the chakra system aligned with Dawkins' system, aligned with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So when we can look at these parallels, we can look at how we can attune our own chakras to raise our own vibration. And we can also see if somebody that we're standing across from is stuck somewhere where they might need a little chakra opening, right? And we can then actually learn how we can interact with them better and allow them to raise their vibe. So we can actually really make a difference without having to be a jerk about it, without having to call people out, just a way that we can naturally radiate something a little bit more to raise their vibration. So, on the left, we see as the chakras are open or in bloom, they create access to higher frequencies of consciousness. So maintaining a healthy mind, body, spirit complex allows the energy to flow and allows us to perform in optimal states. And on the My Evolved Life Instagram, guys, I got these chakra reels with mantra chanting. Go check them out. Like, you could just sit there and listen to them in your car. It's going to hit you on whatever chakra it is. They're pretty cool. They're 1 minute long because they're reels, and you can just tune into whenever you want. And you could also chant along with them and stuff like that. Super easy to continuously open these chakras. And each one of us incarnates with different levels and different starting place, and that's our life's path. So it's not like a good or bad thing. This is just the way it is. It's exciting because when we have an awareness around this, it's like, oh shit, I can open this all up. Like I can get to wherever I want to be. It's just a matter of me spending a little bit of time, giving a little bit of attention to whatever place that I feel like I might need some opening. So it's pretty sweet because once we start opening our chakras, we'll see our consciousness raise, and then we'll be able to meet our basic needs, which is the bottom of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And then we can get to our safety needs, and then we can get to our belonging needs, and then we can get to all of our extras in life, right? All the real flourishing stuff. So it's really easy to be able to see this path, but we don't have to go out there and hustle to make it happen. That's what we might have been taught, but we could actually just start with our inner world, and we'll start to see how when our inner world opens up, these other things start to happen for us. So it's not like we have to make this complicated and make it difficult. We can get to self-actualization, not through hard work. That's one path. Absolutely, that's one path. Go for it if you want, if that's what's fun to you. But we can also do it by starting with our internal spiritual chakra system, be able to bring in more light through us, and all of our interactions are going to be at a higher vibration. We're going to see more truth. We're going to raise the vibration of the planet, and we're going to make some good dents in the consciousness and and actually make this world a better place. So it's a matter of us not holding on to this vibration of negativity or lower vibration, but actually allowing the flow, which when we allow flow to happen, our vibration naturally raises. So we can keep this real simple. And Dawkins says that the average right now is around 200. And that was a couple of years ago. So I believe that recent events have caused a large sector of the population to embrace that courage, right? That one difficult one. They had to stand up for themselves. That is, say, no more of this. I'm exercising my free will. I'm not buying into this system. I'm doing something else. And they've exercised their courage. Yeah, some might have gone the opposite, but going up, the ones that have embraced the courage actually lift the whole tide, the whole current. So it's actually more impactful because we don't need, a vast majority. We just need enough people to actually raise their vibration, and the rest will come along with it. So that's why we didn't see a bunch of violence, right? We didn't see a bunch of violence around a lot of the things that didn't need to happen in this world. At least I believe didn't need to happen in this world, that were more tyrannical. But we saw people come together in love, especially you Canadians. You guys saw it real big time. It was really heartwarming to see them do that versus, what happened during election time in the United States a couple of years ago, where there was a lot of lower vibrational stuff happening. So it's been real great to see us make that shift. It's a very obvious that we are going in the right direction. So how can you raise your vibration? Well, first, our vibration is largely affected by what we consume from the external world and what we create from our internal world. So there's a few do's and don'ts, right? So when we consume heaps of junk, our vibration will be lower. So that's, food that is not made by God, that's been manipulated, that's high pesticides, so forth. The majority of what you're going to see on the other side of a black mirror or television, it's literally called programming, television program that's broadcasted, right? It's broadly casted spells through a black mirror, which is called a scrib, and it has a low vibrational intention to it. So, this is our black mirror, right? Well, let's get it closed here, right? Black mirror. If you look at your black mirror, you see your own reflection in it, right? And in the ancient times, this was called a scrib, and it was used to bring false realities to the world. So, if we consume things in here, it may or may not be real. And if we actually look at these devices, right? If we look at these devices and we turn them around, what do we have? Right? We have on this one, this is a apple, right? With a bite taken out of it. If you look at the Chrome logo, it's 3 6s. So just be cognizant of it. It doesn't mean don't use it, but just know that we can also inject information into these that's positive and actually reverse the spell. So watch what you consume on the black mirrors, and see how it impacts your emotional, your mental set. And I know a lot of you probably already know all this stuff, but see what triggers sadness, anger, depression. I have never seen I shouldn't say never. Very rarely do I see a healthy relationship on TV, or a good relationship at work. It seems to be pretty nutty. So, get rid of those GMO and processed foods. Watch what you consume on the television. Go for foods that have. Actually, we're going to get to this a little bit more in the next slide. What about pharmaceuticals? Take a look at what you're taking in pharmaceutical wise. Anything made in a lab, it's going to impact your vibration. Western medicine's great. It's got a great place, and especially in the uses of like trauma treatment. But just to resign ourselves just to take a pill to fix things or get stuck with something to fix things as a go-to solution, it's just a lazy thing to do, and it's going to lower our vibration. So I'm not a doctor, but you're going to find that greater cause of disease is these things than actually go in another direction. So also the bullshit in our lives, like the the anger, the jealousy, the grudges, the fear, the drama that we create in our life can really lower our vibrations. So watch what you're doing in your life, and take a moment right now. What is something that you could cut out of your life or reduce in your life? Write down 3 things, 4 things, 5 things that you can just get rid of that is lowering your vibration. I guarantee you know of 3 or 4 things that you could get rid of, right? So that's first, stop lowering the vibration. For me, a big one was I was living in Miami and alcohol was everywhere, and I did a lot of it. And that every time I drank, I felt like the curtains were closing. Right. So now I don't even have a taste for alcohol anymore. And then what can we do to raise our vibration? Well, first of all, let's be more intentional about what we consume. We cut out the poison and we start nurturing our minds instead. So instead of taking in the news, which there's nothing new about the news, right? It's just the same stuff over and over again. Instead of taking that in, maybe we want to listen to a podcast. What you're doing here, being on this call, this webinar, this show, you're taking in something that's nourishing your mind. So look at educational, uplifting podcasts or inspiring music. Learn from each other's stories of how we transcended old belief systems. Learn how to hack your belief systems. You don't know how to look at your belief systems from childhood and rewrite them. Go learn how to do it. It's one of the most profound things we can do, getting ourselves into a program that allows us to continuously build our confidence, our self-worth, and give back to others. We can do online and in-person courses, coaching, mentorships. Like, there's so many avenues. And there's a lot of things that are free too, like yoga and meditation, right? These things are really free. We can connect to our internal world through the breath work that we just did before, or a higher self or source and God, like through prayer, gaining that clarity and insight, inner sight, right? Get out in the sun. I know people have all kinds of weird things to say about the sun. I swear, I feel like I get recharged. I don't even have to eat as much once I'm out in the sun, and I get warmth and energy from it. Eating real food, like as close to nature as possible. Like just get that clean food as close to nature as possible. If you can grow it. If you want to know the Anastasia way of planting a seed and putting your DNA in it, just shoot me a message and I'll send you the steps. You can figure out how to actually plant stuff. I've grown some amazing food recently, and it's so easy to do it. And I didn't even know how. 2 years ago, I didn't even know how to tell if a fruit was ripe. And now I'm picking mangoes and growing bananas and papaya and pineapples and all kinds of fruit. And it's amazing. So this also includes our water, right? The average person actually consumes a credit card worth of plastic a day. So, maybe put these, less of these plastic bottles, more of these glass bottles, or drink from springs or wells, right? Instead of those plastic water bottles. And maybe instead of taking that pill to feel better, maybe you could do some breath work or yoga, or go to the gym or do something that you really love. Because what ends up happening is we get to a point, once we started consuming good stuff, that we can raise the vibration of those around us in a beautiful way. So maybe write down right now a couple of things that you are going to commit to doing to raise your vibration. What are some things that you can do and you can spend 10, 15 minutes a day doing to make sure your vibration comes high? What could you consume that would be helpful with this? And at a certain point, we get to do this cool thing where rather than consuming, we become creators. And a lot of people that are on here right now, I know that you're already here. And that's awesome. So as our vibe raises, we become inspired, and rather than consuming, we start to create. And this is a huge shift. So if we learn to play a musical instrument, or we sing, or we create art, or speak to inspire others, or help in any way that feels good for us, we create a vibration that ripples beyond us into space and into the collective. And the reality changes. So what, also write down here, what are some of the things that you could implement in your life? And what are the things in the next 24 hours you can do? Not like months from now. What are you going to create in the next 24 hours that's going to raise your vibe? And maybe when you show it to somebody or say it to somebody or hand it to somebody, it's going to raise their vibe too. It could be a phone call. Right? You're just going to create an authentic conversation and make sure there's forgiveness around somewhere that you held grudges. So that gets cleaned out. And then you're going to turn that and transmute that to love. Like that is a huge step. Even if it's just one person, it's going to change their life. It's going to change your life, and it's going to change life, every single person that you guys come into contact with. This is not complicated stuff. We just have to take steps to do it. So I know many of you are already doing this, and we can always do it more. So call a friend, do some art, dance, sing, play, write, sculpt, whatever it is that you can do and you can create. Become a creator instead of a consumer. And then just take a look at this levels of consciousness again.
Hey, Iain, just want to check in real quick. We're currently at the top of the hour. So if you want to maybe just set a time and we'll start winding things down.
Yeah, actually, this is the second to last slide.
Perfect. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you again for everyone here. And a reminder, if you guys haven't yet, be sure to follow Iain on Instagram. And Iain, back to you.
Yeah. So just take a moment again, look at this levels of consciousness, right? So where you are vibrating at is going to predict your life view. What emotional state you're in, it's going to predict your life view. So maybe take a screenshot of this and just, you can now check this throughout the day and see where you're sitting, and just remind yourself to do whatever your tune-up process is. If it's going to the Evolved Life, the My Evolved Life on Instagram and doing some mantras, do that. If it's writing down in your journal, or it's calling a friend or telling somebody that you love them, or it's jumping up and down, doing jumping jacks for 10 minutes, whatever it is, find something that helps you to lift your own vibration and keep it high throughout the day, and just put a little bit of that effort into it. And you're actually, getting more and more in line with these laws of the universe. And that's it. So thank you, everybody. We can pop in any questions you want here, and I'll let Brendon kind of go through the chat, and we can see if there's anything on the YouTube or here that we need to respond to.
Awesome. Thank you so much again, everyone, for joining, for your attention. Iain, thank you so much for that. One thing I actually just had a question or something I'd love to even just be able to invite you to share a little bit more clarity on. I know, like, with some of the stuff that we were talking about, with the intention being to raise our vibration, I think it's also important to remind people that that doesn't mean, it's being mindful of our relationship to any of the circumstances, opposed to avoiding the lower vibrations and not mistaking lower vibrations with healthy challenges. And like sometimes, like, running into someone who may have like their own vibrational dynamics going on that might not necessarily be in alignment with us. It's not so much like, avoid them completely, but more so bring in the higher vibrational mindset into whatever relationship is being called upon for you, and that circumstance, that person, that situation. So it's like, there are going to be things where lower vibrational circumstances, they're going to enter your life, but how do you relate to them? That was something that crossed my mind. What do you think on that, Iain?
Yeah, I think there's a place for that. So I know in the beginning of my journey, I was surrounded by a lot of negativity, right? And all I could see was negativity. I was creating the whole thing. I didn't know I was creating the whole thing, but I was creating the whole thing. Everything that anybody said, I had a perception around it that was coming at me like somebody wanted something from me. So I needed to take a break. I needed to take a break and get away from the people that were around me, so they wouldn't hold me where they thought I was, and I wouldn't hold them where I thought they were, and I could like look at myself. And by being around people that had a little different conversation, it allowed me to get out of the loop that I was in. And then I was able to go back to those situations And in my new state, my new vibration, I could maintain my vibration. I could see somebody's energy separate from mine, and that's a key component. There's a unity of light meditation that I have created. That really allowed me to learn to see people's energy as separate from mine and kind of see where my boundary was versus where they were at. And then with that separation that I was able to create there, then I could see and not judge and not get caught up in it and not avoid and really face some of the other pieces. So I think what you kind of referring to is like spiritual bypassing. A lot of people call it something like that. But I think I have a little different take than a lot of people on it. Like I found that allowing and just letting it be is really the way to do it rather than judging and everything. Like the vibration kind of thing goes away because the vibration stays naturally high when I'm in flow. And if I get caught up on anything like an issue or a problem, I start judging it, I start labeling it as something, and I start going down into that vibration instead of just accepting it as it is. That makes sense.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, again, at this point, just for anybody who's tuned in right now, we're going to get close to wrapping things up, but we do have time for just a couple more questions or even just comments of gratitude. So for anybody who's tuned in, again, on the Zoom, on the YouTube chat, thank you guys so much for your participation. Iain, even if I know there are some comments there, if there's anything there that catches your eye, feel free. But yeah, just a lot of people, again, just kind of chit-chatting, not too many particular questions, some that were just asking for the links to the Instagram and website. And again, we posted those in the chat. But yeah, any feedback that you have for Iain is great. I know there's a comment there from Nancy talking about how the Hawkins scale is like not the quote unquote highest truth, in the sense that, you know, maybe there's a better way of being able to measure the scale of vibrations, everything like that. That's a great conversation there as well. But Iain, if there's anything else that you feel you want to just respond to or cover, please feel free. And again, for anybody else, if you guys do have any closing questions or gratitude, also put that into the chat as well.
Yeah. So, on the Hawkins scale, it's a way to visualize and make sense of certain things that otherwise you might not be able to make sense of them. So I don't proclaim that anything I said was the highest truth. If I was the highest truth, I probably would have came on and said something more like Om for 2 hours. Or we would have sat here in silence, one of those two things or somewhere in between. Right. And I think it's also really great here. I see a lot of people talking about etymology and new paradigms, two pianos, two guitars with different melodies playing. We live in the universe, right? These are the laws, the one verse, the one song, right? So the one verse is what we're playing in the great symphony here. So how we decide to make it is really up to us. And I can just do my best to sing God's song as beautiful as I hear the birds do it, as beautiful as I hear the wind rustling through the trees. And that's my intention here, is to do this expression in that way. So I'm one of those pianos, and each one of your comments is equally as valid. At the end of the day, like, what do we want to create for the future? And I think a lot about my son and the world I'd like him to see. And I think about my childhood and the great things in my childhood and some of the things that weren't so great in my childhood, and the ancestral lineage that I had. And I want to make sure I put an end to certain things that were, certain belief sets that were programmed into me unconsciously by my parents, my teachers, and authority and so forth. I don't believe we need people telling us what to do or governance or anything like that. Quite honestly, I believe that we have our own inner compass, and that fostering that is the most beautiful thing that we can do, and allowing other people to express themselves however they want to express themselves, as long as it's coming from, within. I just want to turn people into their hearts and realize that inner compass is where to be guided, and they're not just mockingbirds or parrots for what the TV says to do. So these laws are a great way to tune into that own individual sovereignty and knowingness, and be able to leap into life with complete faith and courage. And from there births love and these greater vibrations that allow us to transcend a lot of the suffering that we have. At least that's my belief system. So that's where I'm at right now, and I'm open to upgrades on that. So I'll go through the comments and everything, and
Sure.
on the YouTube and pop back. And you guys, anything I didn't answer for you here, feel free to message me on Instagram, and I'd love to have a dialogue. Maybe we even do a little lives on some of that stuff, because some of you have knowledge. Many of you, every one of you probably has knowledge I don't. And we could probably expand upon this and really dive deeper and make this a 20-hour conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. These presentations could be as long as infinity is. And yeah, this was a great presentation, Iain. And again, I think a lot of what you're about, what I'm about, so much of it is, again, being able to help lead people back to the heart and being able to help lead people back to their own awareness of these laws of creation. It's like we are that, and then with these laws of creation, what I feel, and just from listening to you, this is stuff I was reflecting on. It's like it's the relationship that we have with these laws is so important, because when we deepen that relationship, we're deepening the relationship with ourselves. When we deepen the relationship with ourselves, that's when we can really step into our abilities as creators, and again, to really, like you said, to like harmonize with the flow of nature. Like this song, I love the metaphor of thinking of us as instruments. This song that comes through us, this song is yes, it's song, but it's also it's your writing, it's your words, it's your actions, it's the way you care about people, it's the way you show up into the world. So what song is coming through you, and how can we, like as a community, and with Iain here helping guide us, how can we here better understand, how to be able to tune ourselves to the nature of that song? So I know we got a lot of other awesome content to be able to share with you guys. And again, I invite everyone here, just going to give you a quick overview of the next series of events. Iain, I'll pass it back to you. I know there's been a lot of comments in the chat of people expressing gratitude. Before I mention that, again, a quick reminder that Iain can be found on Instagram at Iain Grae, as well as My Evolved Life, which is the business page with more of the additional videos. And then you can check out Iain's program at the Samcart address, and you can find that in the links for this video here as well. And we do have a little bit of a special announcement for another project that both Iain and myself are working on, and we'll share that for the end for you guys, because there's a lot of other awesome opportunities there. So just give you guys a bit of an insight for what's coming up next. Again, on June 30th, Iain's going to be back with episode 2 of this deepening of our connection series. And that is going to be the universal feedback loop. So that's about the laws of action, correspondence, cause, and effect. And then from there, episode 3 is going to be on July 28th. And that's going to be from the core to the now, the laws of compensation and attraction. And so again, if you guys go back to the event page, there's a little bit more of a blurb on that. Maybe Iain might want to even just give us a little bit of a heads up if he wishes to on anything that we can expect from those. But I think this was a great first event to really be able to lay down the foundations, to just put everyone on the same page. And again, I know a lot of people really enjoyed it. So Iain, anything else we want to share? I'll pass it back to you, and then we'll kind of get ready to segue our way to the end of the show.
Yeah. So actually, just as far as the next show, this feedback loop, this is how the universe tells us what vibration we are in. And I can give you an example here, because I see a comment here from, I think it was Nancy, saying that the breasts and the butt are vulgar, and that's a perception in Nancy's mind. That's not for me. I don't believe that they're vulgar, so she's telling me to take them out. For me, I just had a child. My wife was just breastfeeding for the last 2 years. And I think the breast is the most amazing thing. I don't know why anybody could even see them as vulgar. Like, it's the most, they're life-giving. And I could actually see the Fibonacci sequence in them coming out as she's feeding my child, and it's growing. And there's belief systems around that that cause one to see them in one way or the other. The same thing with the butt crack or the shape of the buttocks. These are the most naturally occurring things in the world. And the idea here is to be able to reflect upon our inner worlds based on the vibration that we can see the vibration we're in based on what we're projecting out there and our belief systems in the outer world. So this next one that we're going to get into is this feedback loop, how the universe tells us that this is all a reflection of who we are inside, and how important it is to be able to see that so that we can create something cleaner by being able to look within, but we can see within by looking without. So I'm really, really excited to have you guys in this next section, because it's really profound and allows us to really become the creator and responsible for everything in our awareness, and dissolve this idea of judgment, good, bad, right, wrong, vulgar and perverse or beautiful or anything like that. It's actually the acceptance of that oneness, and that all that is actually part of the divine creation that we're in. And once we have that, things really start to flow, and we can start to make better choices and really see the beauty in everything that there is. So God bless you all. Thank you all for joining us. And I look forward to seeing you here at the end of the month.
Awesome. So again, if you guys know some people that you might want to invite to these series, just get them to subscribe through the registration on Portal to Ascension. And again, that will give them access to the recordings. And I know the recording for this one will be up soon, as well as the YouTube link, which again is already on the Portal to Ascension YouTube channel. And yeah, Iain, if you'd like to just take a quick moment here, we can give people a little bit of a scope on some other stuff that we're working on through Paradigm Shift Central, which is again a project that has always been in collaboration with Portal to Ascension. So it's a really great opportunity for us to kind of continue to let people know of the other things happening outside of Portal to Ascension, but still within the same ballpark. So,
yeah, I think this came up was I saw a lot what you were doing, and it's very similar to the programs that I put out there, and the way that you bring people through the process of really knowing themselves better and shifting their own paradigms is absolutely beautiful. And then I have this other way of doing it, and this content that I've created. And I also know plenty of people doing it. You know plenty of people, and probably a lot of you creators are on this right now, really helping individuals to really raise their or expand their consciousness. I don't even want to say raise or lower, really. It's expanding and having a greater understanding. And we wanted to create a platform that would allow creators to be able to share where they are and their stories, and be able to help people grow, and also help them to be able to monetize all in one place, versus having to go over to just the mind valleys of the world, and having to go buy content from this coach or this creator or that creator, but actually have a platform under one roof that's very socially orientated, builds a lot of community, has a lot more events like this, and then also has specific programs that take people through anything from how to clean up their beliefs, how to design their life better, how to play medicine bowls, whatever it is. So whatever your talent is that you're bringing to this world, we want to be able to showcase you and really allow you to be able to reach more individuals, and also allow us to learn from you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So just going off of what Iain said, I'll just give you guys a quick summary. And then again, we're going to wrap up the event here. Again, this is just an additional invitation for you guys to be a part of some other really cool stuff here. So Paradigm Shift Central, this is what you want to remember. This is the website that you're going to be able to go to, paradigmshiftcentral.com. Keep in mind, things are still literally in production, meaning I'm still doing a lot of work on the website. We're getting things ready, but within the next week, we do have some upcoming events that you guys are welcome to take a part in. So if you're feeling eager to be a part of basically the beta of this project, then this is your chance to be able to be a part of it. And again, this is Paradigm Shift Central. If you guys have seen me on the other Portal to Ascension events, I've been doing Paradigm Shift Central for about 10 years, but it's always gone through different versions and iterations. The quick summary of this one. So this is basically the opportunity for you as the user to subscribe for a monthly subscription for $33, which is currently what we got at now. And that will give you access to ongoing interactive events hosted by a variety of conscious media creators. So it's kind of almost like a Netflix subscription, but with events, interactive events with utility, practicality, things that are going to help you grow and give an opportunity for you to be able to connect with an awesome community. And then obviously you can catch the recordings there as well. The model is quite simple. And again, with this, we're also being able to help support the creators as the continued subscriptions come in. We have a vision of this. This is something that's going to continue to grow. It's something that, imagine where this would be in a year from now. Imagine the ability for us to be able to invite in some new guests in the future. So to give you guys just a quick observation of this, what I would invite you to do is to go to paradigmshiftcentral.com. And I'm just going to do a very quick screen share here of the website. Keep in mind that things are, again, just like literally like still being updated. So I would even encourage you at this point to basically just subscribe to our email updates. So right at the top, you're going to see a link there to subscribe to email updates. But again, go to paradigmshiftcentral.com. You'll see the membership sign up there for $33 or $55 if you want to join as a creator and get more involved with my coaching, our production meetings, and potentially host events. And just to give you guys a quick idea of some of the events coming up, there's more events that we're going to add to this. These are literally just my events. We have our Dream Discussion Circle coming up. We're going to have a full moon global meditation. Some of these events are going to be broadcasted live on YouTube for free, but the access to the Zoom is just exclusive for the members. And then we're going to also be doing a circle discussion on the question, what does being spiritual mean to you? So that's a great place to, again, join a very casual circle conversation. And again, it's all facilitated through professional creators. And then following that, I'm going to be doing a flowetry workshop, which is all about learning how to do like freestyle poetry, spoken word, song, stuff you've heard Neil do plenty of times before. And then at the end of the month, I'm going to be hosting a conscious campfire, which is going to be a prompt oriented journey. And then again, you can just kind of like see here on the website, get an idea of some of the events. Literally, again, I'll be working on this in the late hours following the broadcast of this. So you come back in the day, it's going to be updated. And here's some of our hosts of the events. There's like my picture there. You can see Ian's picture there. You can see my wife, Lacey, there, who I do the dream circles with and other stuff there. You can see Neil there. You can see Luna there. And if you scroll back up to the top, you're also going to see some familiar faces. And again, these are just more kind of like the temporary graphics that I'm still going back. So I was working really hard to be able to get a version of this function and operational just in time for the Portal to Ascension event, which we've done today. So again, at this point, I would just direct everyone to go ahead to paradigmshiftcentral.com. And at this point, just subscribe to the email updates, and you will get those updates in the next, as we move things forward with the event. So don't bother subscribing just yet unless you're really eager to join the beta, but keep an eye open for the emails and we will let you guys know, and I'm sure you'll be hearing about it. And again, some of the events from Portal to Ascension and Paradigm Shift Central, they'll be crossing over, and I'm so grateful to be able to have Portal to Ascension as one of our partners within the collaboration for this. So yeah, check it out. If you guys want to follow me on Instagram as well, you can follow me at Mystic Spider-Man, and I'll be posting about it there, and you'll see me and Ian talking about it through some future lives there as well. So that's basically it. If you guys are interested, check it out. You'll be hearing more about it as we go. Ian, anything else on that you want to just share? And then I think we're pretty much done as it is.
No, I feel complete. I'm excited.
Perfect.
To have you guys along. Looking forward to see you towards the end of the month, and looking forward to working with you right on this next project.
Absolutely. Perfect. All right. So thank you again, everyone. Feel free to reach out on Instagram to either myself or Ian. Again, Ian, you can find him at Iain Grae or My Evolved Life. And you can find me on Instagram at Mystic Spider-Man, and also on Skull Babylon on YouTube. And yeah, thank you guys so much again for joining in. And we look forward to being able to have you join us here for the future of this series, as well as other awesome events here through Portal to Ascension. So please continue to leave your comments, invite your friends. And until next time, have a great day, everyone. And go apply this magic. Your life is, go tune your instruments. So, all right. Thanks, Ian. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
God bless.
Bye, guys. Much love.